Just makes you feel lucky to be here tonight, and as opposed to 20, 30 years ago when you see the kinds of advances that they've made just in the last decade. So thanks, Dr. Slayman and Dr. Glaspie, and we'll be hearing from them again when we get to our panel here in just a few minutes. Of course, when we see these slides, one of the things we all probably think to ourselves, and the doctors as well, those are real people that we're talking about, and we want to turn our attention now to the story of at least one individual here who's been, well, the story's been described as triumphant, and when you hear it, I think you'll agree. Johnny Erickson Tata is a breast cancer survivor and an international advocate for people with disabilities. She was in a diving accident at age 17 that left her a quadriplegic. After 2 years of rehabilitation, she emerged with new skills and a fresh determination to help others in similar situations to hers. Her best-selling autobiography, Johnny, and the feature film of the same name have been translated into many languages, introducing her to people around the world. She has so far visited 47 countries. She's served on the National Council on Disability and the Disability Advisory Committee to the U.S. State Department. She's received numerous awards and honors, written 50 books. 50 books, that is not a typo. She's been interviewed on Larry King Live, ABC's World News Tonight. Those are just a few. And listen to this, Johnny and her husband Ken have been married since 1982. That alone is an accomplishment. In 2010, Johnny was diagnosed with breast cancer, and she was one of those treated at UCLA. I think when you hear the story, you'll agree she is the embodiment of the word survivor. Johnny Erickson Tata.
Thank you. Your introduction makes me very tired. I cannot believe I do all those things. I want to thank my good friends at UCLA Health, Westlake Village, for inviting me tonight, because I always thought breast cancer happened to other women, not me. My attention was always focused on my quadriplegia. 45 years in a wheelchair have saddled me with enough medical challenges without having to worry about cancer. My attitude changed, though, one morning in the bathroom when I wheeled up to the mirror and I noticed that my right breast was a little misshapen. I called my husband in, and he confirmed my suspicion. I had a lump. The next thing I knew, I was at Los Robles Hospital for a mastectomy. And after surgery, I went back into that same bathroom to look at my chest without a breast. And as I wheeled up to the mirror, not quite looking at it, finally getting the courage, I opened my eyes and I saw myself and I thought, I can do this. I can handle this. We even began to coin a phrase around our house. We'd say, we're cancer busters. Well, all that bravado dissipated. It all disappeared the day we visited my medical oncologist, Dr. Ashori, to discuss what my treatment would be next. Now, Dr. Ashori is a compassionate and a kind professional, but he minced no words. I would have to go back into the hospital and have a port surgically inserted into my chest. And after that, there would be toxic drugs, which would weaken my already fragile bones. There would be blood clots, perhaps. That was a risk. So were lung and bladder infections, nausea and hair loss. I tell you what, Dr. Ashori got up, left the office for a moment, closed the door, and I just looked at my husband and, oh, I can't do this. I can't do this. And I sobbed, great heaving sobs. I cannot do this. Emotions are very powerful. And they are a good and necessary part of who we are, but they can sometimes lead you down a dark, grim path. My wheelchair has taught me that. So even as I was drying my tears on my way home from Dr. Ashori's office, I realized I would not allow myself to go back down that dark, grim path of depression and despair. The same depression I felt when I had first broken my neck. You just have to give your emotions an anchor. They need an anchor, something solid, something secure to keep you from being led into fear and anxiety and depression. So that day when I left the office, I decided I was going to anchor my emotions to something a lot more secure than just my feelings. I'm not talking about facts like we've heard this evening about disease. I'm talking about facts of faith. What we can know about God. Timeless precepts that can guide us all. Rock-solid convictions that inform our conscience, our mind, our will, and yes, our emotions. For me, I'll have to tell you, I found some wonderful anchors in the Bible. Now, you may be of a different faith, but that's okay. The point is we all of us, need a guiding hand greater than ourselves. And for me, I found it in the Bible. These anchors became ballast for my emotions. Anchor number 1, be of good courage. I told myself that constantly. I remember when I was at the chemo clinic and the nurse drove the needle into my port. I winced, it hurt. But then I glanced over to the woman in the big chemo chair next to me and the courageous way she took that needle. And I thought to myself, I can do that. The encouragement was her example. Like something a rabbi once said, I heard him say that our natural inclinations are always toward fear, timidity, cowardice. But when people demonstrate bravery in the face of overwhelming odds, it impacts everyone around them, and courage rises in the hearts of all. It takes only one person to influence a great many for the good. I read that in the Old Testament. Be strong and courageous, for the Lord is with you. Anchor number 2, you are not alone. As I would look around me in the chemo clinic, I realized I was part of a sisterhood, a wonderful sisterhood. In the New Testament, it's written, God has said, never will I leave you, never will I forsake you. So we can say with confidence, the Lord is my helper. I will not be afraid. I tell you what, friend, you can endure almost anything, sitting slump-shouldered in a big chemo chair, if you know that others are facing it with courage and that God is sitting next to you. Another big anchor, God is in it. Because God's ways are not always our ways, because they are so much higher than ours, He's got this capacity to look at your cancer and my cancer through 2 lenses, as it were, a narrow lens and a wide-angle one. When God looks at a disease through a narrow lens, He sees the heartbreak for what it is. It's terrible, it's tragic, it's awful. However, when God looks at your cancer through His wide-angle lens, He sees it in relation to everything leading up to it and everything flowing out from it. How your battle will encourage other people around you. How it will strengthen your faith. How it will inspire others. How it will make you empathetic toward other people who hurt far more than you do. How it will draw you and your family and your friends closer together and give you a platform to share your story and so much more. God often, I think, wills what He despises because, and only because, He has a wide-angle view on the world. We, however, are often limited to a narrow lens view of our problems. We tend to only think the problem for what it is. We only see it as a painful inconvenience. And this is why during chemotherapy, I made myself remember that even breast cancer can fit into a beautiful mosaic that one day, I will understand. Another anchor, become an expert. Now, I know what you're thinking. You might be assuming that I mean become an expert on invasive intraductal carcinomas, spend hours on the internet, comparing the latest findings, join a cancer Facebook page and visit it often. But that's not what I mean by becoming an expert. It's not wrong to know about a disease, of course not. Knowledge is always a good thing, but sometimes the lure to know more and more about cancer can diminish your spirits. What a waste it is to read day and night about carcinomas of the breast and not invest the same time in more hopeful activities and more distracting, happier pursuits. The last anchor: take on life's problems one day at a time, and do not allow yourself to become anxious about the future. That advice has guided me as a quadriplegic in a wheelchair for 46 years, and it's seen me well through cancer. And ultimately, it's that sort of perseverance that will produce true character. And you may well become one of those who inspires courage in the lives of others. God bless you, and thanks for listening.
Thank you very much. Now, there's an attitude to remember next time you're feeling cranky. And we do appreciate, Johnny, you being willing to tell your story in such an intimate way.